Welcome back, everybody. It's a brand new week, and that means we get more Invincible. This is the Pendulum episode for the entire Season 1 of Invincible, Episode 7, titled We Need to Talk. Now, of course, coming off last week's episode where Debbie confronts her husband, Omni-Man, it is definitely getting to some special ways. Now, of course, if you guys are new here, though, and you guys love Invincible like me, or in general, you're just a geek like me, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so we can keep talking movies over here on a daily basis, TV, geeky stuff. That's what I love to do over here, as well as comment down below and let me know your thoughts on this week's Invincible. We can talk full spoilers down there. I'm sure by now you have watched it, and I'm just in general excited to discuss this show with you because this is seriously one of the best comic book shows I've ever watched. You know, this brings me back to the feelings that I got watching the first season of The Boys, which absolutely blew me away, but Invincible is rivaling that for me. It's some of my favorite TV I've watched where every week I am solely waiting for this show. In fact, to the point where I went and bought the comic, the first 47 issues, and I really loved it. But the thing that I really much, like, from reading it to watching the show, the big thing that I noticed is that they're taking the best elements from the entire comic books so far, and very much going, okay, we're going to take this, this, and that, because it's very scatterbrained from everything they're kind of already showing. There's some things that they didn't show until, like, issue 38, which is, like, way farther ahead, and then there's certain things that they hinted at earlier on. It's really interesting, but what they're doing is taking the best aspects of Invincible and making it somewhat better, and taking the worst aspects of the comic and really making it better, to really much fundamentally change up the story. Where, like, as something else that Robert Kirkman, the creator of Invincible, also did, he also did The Walking Dead, which for me, you know, I feel like the comics are very much more superior. There are certain things they definitely did a little bit better, but nonetheless, you know, Invincible is doing it right. I love the animation here. I love how gory it is, and it continuously just impresses me every single week. Now, of course, if you guys are new here to these reviews, Amazon Prime does support me and is able to send over these reviews early, but these are solely my entire opinions. They do ask me to not reveal certain things about this episode. That's why I ask you guys to comment down below, but I will try to say as vague as for some people who have not seen the episode yet, and for people who, you know, we can still talk about this episode. So, of course, this episode opens up with one of the most awkward car rides. Well, it opens up with Debbie pretty much kicking Omni-Man out, saying, "Get the hell out of my house!" And then it goes and shows where Mark is at as they're driving back from their college trip. And, you know, he keeps trying to tell her, "Hey, I am invincible. I am invincible." It's like, oh my god, dude, just stop, just stop. You know, you need to just say it. And, you know, this week, they're in this awkward car ride, they're heading back down the street, and, of course, when they get back home, he runs up to her, he goes, "Listen, I am..." She just slams the door in his front of his face, he goes into his suit, goes in there, and she completely just ignores him. She goes, "I knew you were some sort of superhero," like, it just made sense. And, you know, this is the thing that I really like about Amber's character in the show, is that she's very much her own person. She's self-sufficient, where in the comic books, she felt very much needy to a certain extent, and annoying. But this Amber is very much more, again, self-sufficient and smarter, and isn't going to put up with that bullshit. She pretty much flat out calls it out, which Zazie Beetz does such a great job voicing that, and Steven Yeun is so relatable in that role of trying to balance, again, his real life and his superhero life, and I just absolutely keep eating up all of this stuff with Invincible, and it's just coming to be one of my favorite shows again, of maybe all time if this show continues this great atmosphere that it's grabbing. Of course, even from there, we get some great things of seeing Eve make up her own coffee, and then we move into the conversation between Debbie and Nolan, and it becomes interesting to just see the least of how they are kind of going about and how this is all going, and of course, Nolan's like, "We'll talk later." He leaves! And then, of course, the Secret Service comes in. Cecil and his men pop in, they grab Debbie, and they take her somewhere special. Now, this all opens up, and again, after finding out Amber's already there, and in general, just seeing how this family is now falling apart, where in the comic books, it took a little bit longer to get there necessarily, where this show is like ramping up, and I very much know exactly where this show is going to end next week, especially after everything that happens in this one. Heading over to the Guardians of the Globe, they're welcoming back Monster Girl. She's back in play. And of course, then we go to see how they're still treating Robot like shit. Now we finally understand what is going on with him and the Mahler twins and what his whole ultimatum was ending up to be, which is, again, is kind of a sad entire thing, and you kind of feel a little bit more for Robot, even though he is kind of a sick, cynical son of a bitch. You understand a lot more for him, and his dynamic with Monster Girl kind of adds a lot more flair to it now, and I'm really interested to see how they end up continuing that like they did in the comic books. But even adding there, I think some of the best things was seeing where this cloned body that he got, like how he ended up discussing that and how the team reacts to that as well. It's really interesting overall to see all of that, but just in general, seeing how the Guardians of the Globe are now stationed in this one position because Cecil tells them not to move, because that then builds up to everything else really much furthering in to the rest of this episode. I think that's where I go, every single thing that has happened in this show so far builds up and ramps up to see how everything and every character is connected in some way, shape, or form, and every single thing is important and really much needed for a particular reason. Of course, as Mark is having his whole fit, William kind of pisses him off, but William's telling him the truth, so Mark decides to fly off to go see Eve, which, of course, maybe they should just date at this point. I think it would probably work for the best. But even going from there, even though he's going to see her, we see Omni-Man trying to sit there and talk to himself, like, this is how I'm going to tell my son what is going on. And, you know, if you've read the comics, this is a very important arc, but the thing that I'm really liking about is how they're treating Nolan more in this show, and in general, how they are treating him more towards his wife. I think that is an in particular thing to see if they actually further keep that in line, or if they, again, just kind of go the comic book route. And again, I'm trying to stay vague because I don't want to give spoilers for what could be happening down the road, but I'm really liking the direction they're taking with Omni-Man more in this episode than they actually did in the comic books. And I'm curious if you've read the comic books, if you feel that exact same way as well. See, at this point now, Cecil and Debbie are having this really interesting conversation, cuts to the scene Invincible, more blood splats on it, and it just overall opens up to a really action-packed third act of this entire episode. And again, heading into next week's episode, this was the best episode you possibly could have given us now, because it not just opens up again, we see Mark and Eve having that great conversation once again about how, again, he fucked up, and Eve's telling it to the truth. Everyone's telling him the truth, and Mark doesn't want to hear it, but then they see something falling and all sorts of things like this. Cut back to Omni-Man. Omni-Man is trying to find his son, and as he's finally getting his scent, he talks to Will, figures out where he's at, and flies out. The thing about this all, we get a lot of gory action set pieces in this last third act, because right before that, the giant, he heads back to his house, the special services there, they're all fighting, Omni-Man's kicking their ass, splattering blood every single place, and then of course he heads across the street, sees that they've been spying on him. That house explodes, trying to take out Omni-Man, or in general, just slow him down. Again, then he finally sees Will, takes off, and from there, it's just this epic battle to get there. They're trying to shoot him down with laser beams. Cecil pops in, which actually had some great sequences in there, and their discussion and how that kind of all worked out was really much intense, not knowing how that was going to go. Again, Omni-Man's last final battle, he is just taking out and clocking in every single thing that he possibly can until that giant kaiju comes into play, and it's Omni-Man versus the kaiju. The kaiju battle was great because the kaiju now is stronger and almost Omni-Man dying, but of course Mark and Eve are flying in, and Mark flies in to save the day, punching and helping his father, not knowing what is possibly going on, that now everyone knows that he killed the Guardians of the Globe. And of course Eve gets a call from Cecil telling her to head back to the Guardians thing, so that kind of leaves her there. Oh my god, there's so much that happened in this episode. Literally was death here, death, holy crap, this person died, oh my god, there's blood all over there. They finally end up taking out the giant kaiju, but in between this fight, one of the big things is a hero comes back from the Guardians of the Globe that originally died. Of course, if you've seen what the Mauler twins were up to, we knew that where that was going. He is back, he is fighting Omni-Man, they get in a giant scuffle, and who ends up winning in the end of the day again? Omni-Man. Rips him in half right in front of his son as the kaiju is defeated, as he is defeated, and Omni-Man turns around to see his son and says, "We have a lot to discuss, son." And that is where the episode ends for this week. This show uses its runtime so perfectly as it just builds up to that epic finale, and I was just in love once again. This is a big episode, and there's a lot of things that, again, I didn't want to get fully into all of the spoilers and all of that necessarily, but this is fantastically one of the best episodes yet for this entire season. And I'm so excited to be discussing this episode with you guys down below in the comment section. So make sure to comment down below, right down there. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button as well. Thank you once again, guys, for clicking on this. And I can't wait to discuss the finale of Invincible later this week. And in general, if you guys also watch The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I will also have my finale review up probably right now as you're watching this. So thank you so much again, guys. And of course, until next time, stay classy.